Hey, what's up everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with Plugin Boutique, and today we're going to be checking out the modal interchange modulation inside of Scalar 2. Now, modal interchange can sometimes be called mutation, mode mixture, most commonly borrowed chord, substitute chord. So it's got a lot of names, but it's essentially the same thing. And we're going to use it just to spice up our chord progression. So the first thing I'm going to do is come into songs and just choose one of these chord progression presets. I'm going to choose Hip Hop 2. I'm going to take these 4 chords and put them in the chord editor. And then I'm going to do that again, just so I have 8 chords to work with. Now, if I just played that, it would be a little bit boring. It's the same 4 chords repeated, and you can imagine that repeated over, 3 minutes would be quite boring. So what we can do is use the modal interchange to spice it up a little bit, essentially. So what I'm going to do is click the modulation tab here, and by default, if we have something in the chord editor, it's going to bring us to the progression. But what we want to do is come down here to modal interchange, and now we can see that we have the F scale, right? Now, my progression is in F Lydian mode. And you can see that marked right here. But we also have F Mixolydian, minor, Locrian, major, Dorian, and Phrygian as well. And all of these will play really nicely together for the most part. Now, essentially, we can do whatever we want as long as it sounds good. But there are some general rules if you're just getting started with this. And that is, you really want to use a borrowed chord in between 2 of the actual modes, or 2 chords from the same mode. So usually I'm going to go ahead and change out the last chord in the progression. So I've got C major. Now another note here is that if you look right above C major, this is not the C major lane, okay? C major is actually right here. So just be careful. Don't jump up here and be like, why does that sound so different? It's because right here is the E minor lane, and that's actually not even used in my progression. So just be aware of that. But if I click right here and then come over here, I can use any of these ones to get something similar, okay, that jives well with the progression, but is a little bit different and makes things a little bit spicier. Okay, so let's say I want to use B major. And I'm going to click and drag it right there. Let's see what my chord progression sounds like right out of the gate like this. So it sounds a little bit off, but what we can do is right click, edit chord, and then drop it down an octave would be my first thing to do to get it closer to where my chord progression sits. Also, another note, which I've actually kind of glossed over here or forgotten to do, was by default inside of the modal interchange, you're going to have just triads. And if you can see right down here, these are all ninths. So what I want to do is come up here where it says triads and change it to ninths. And then I want to come in here again and just take B major 9. It's just going to save us some work later on. We can do that in edit chord, but let's just do it there to begin with. I'm going to come back into edit chord like I did before and just drop that down an octave. And we also have our inversions if we want to make it a little bit different. Okay, so that would be the chord progression. Let's see what that sounds like just playing through the entire progression. I'm going to drop it back down to its normal state instead of using an inversion, and let's see what that sounds like. Okay, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. There's nothing to worry about there. It's not blue, it means it's outside of the scale, but because we used the modal interchange and we borrowed a chord, quote unquote, from a relative mode, it's actually working quite well. And if we want We can duplicate that channel with scalar on it, which will duplicate all of the settings. If we come in here and perhaps change that to staccato strings, and we turn on performance, and maybe come into the new sequences, and then play those two together, we should have something that sounds pretty cool. I am going to jump back into the original scalar here and just do a couple more quick tweaks, like turn on humanize for both of them. And let's see what that sounds like. Actually, let me change it from grand piano to felt piano. You see how it plays so nicely together, especially when it's bringing it back around to our first chord in our 8-chord progression. What I can also do is coming here to edit, and if I select all of these, I can actually change them all at once. I'm going to shift them all up an octave. And that's it. That's the basics of using modal interchange. We can always come in and try another one out. You know, we're on B major here. Let me click off that. Let's try. Let's try that one. Again, we're gonna have to remember to come in and drop it down an octave. And then we also have to remember on this other one to come into the modal interchange and again, also edit that chord and drop it down an octave as well. So one of them had a sort of feeling where it went up. The other one has a sort of feeling where it went down. But again, like if we wanted to push it, like maybe we felt or feels like it's going down too low in terms of tone, we could just come in here and change the inversion up 1 for each. And boom, we've got another unique chord progression, and it's just a little bit spicier than having the same 4 chords repeat over and over and over again. Now that's just one basic use of using the modal interchange inside of Scalar 2. You can go in and change out other chords or quote unquote borrow other chords. You just want to be fairly cognizant of how many you're changing out or how many you're substituting. And if a lot of them are gray or dark gray, you can always select them all, right click, and detect, and maybe you've moved into a new scale. You never know. So another useful tip here is just to make sure your key or your scale is really defined in your chord progression. So here it's pretty clear what scale I'm in, and then I'm just using a borrowed chord. But if I borrow a ton of chords here, my scale might have completely changed in terms of how close it is to a different scale, if that makes sense. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you real quick on getting started with the modal interchange modulation inside of Scalar 2. I hope that helped, and I hope it helps you make a spicier chord progression for your next tune. Anyway, I'm Joshua Casper here for Plugin Boutique. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.